In a quiet Scottish town, Police Constable Rachel Haggie wakes up from a nightmare about her traumatic childhood, a memory of being kidnapped and assaulted. As she gets ready for her night shift, she notices a raven feather on her bed, a strange omen she can't explain. After her usual workout, she gears up and leaves her apartment. But as she steps out, the lights in her room flicker on by themselves. She glances back and sees a shadowy figure staring at her through the window. Shaken, she brushes it off and heads to work. The town is eerily deserted as Rachel begins her patrol. Suddenly, she spots a middle-aged man in a blazer standing in the middle of the road. Before she can react, a speeding car zooms past her, narrowly missing her but hitting the man. The driver, a young man named Caesar, steps out of the car, cursing and yelling, "Not again!" hinting that this isn't his first accident. Rachel turns to check on the victim, but the man has vanished. Confused, she notices blood on Caesar's headlight, proof that the collision was real. She arrests Caesar and reports the incident to the station. At the station, Sergeant McCready digs into Caesar's records and finds suspicious entries in his past. Rachel orders officers Jack and Mundy to search for the injured man. Jack and Mundy, who are secretly having an affair, begin their search. Meanwhile, Caesar is locked in a cell, where he encounters his former teacher, Beswick, arrested for domestic violence. Jack and Mundy return with the injured man. Rachel searches him and finds a notebook filled with names and strange symbols. She calls Dr. Hume, the local physician, to tend to the man's wounds. When Dr. Hume arrives and starts bandaging him, the man whispers something that sends the doctor into a trance. Dr. Hume suddenly sees himself in his own home with the walls bleeding. He snaps out of it, grabs a sharp object, and attacks the man, screaming, "He knows everything!" Rachel, Jack, and McCready restrain Dr. Hume and lock him in a cell. Fingerprints taken from the injured man reveal something impossible. They belong to someone who died decades ago. McCready dismisses it as a computer error. He questions the man, but the stranger only recites cryptic verses from the Bible. McCready too begins to experience disturbing visions and, in a fit of rage, orders the man to be locked in cell number 6. From then on, he's referred to as Six. When Mundy touches Six's hand, she has a vision of herself and Jack beating a convict to death and framing it as a suicide. Shaken, she keeps it to herself. McCready orders Jack and Mundy to investigate Dr. Hume's house, leaving Rachel in charge of the station. Rachel notices a board filled with missing persons reports, all young teenagers. As McCready drives home, he sees Six in the back seat of his car. Terrified, he starts drinking to calm his nerves. Meanwhile, Rachel researches the names from Six's notebook and discovers they all belong to infamous dead criminals. Back at the station, Six tells Beswick to confess to beating his wife. When Beswick refuses, Six places his hand on the cell wall, causing Beswick to lose a tooth. The cameras in Beswick's cell malfunction and the alarm goes off. Rachel rushes to the cell block to find Beswick bashing his head against the bars, bleeding profusely. Caesar, horrified by the scene, sets off the alarm in panic. Rachel pulls Beswick out of the cell, but he collapses. Dr. Hume, still in his cell, claims he can save Beswick if Rachel releases him. As Rachel takes Dr. Hume out, Beswick regains consciousness long enough to say, "I know who Six is," before dying. At Dr. Hume's house, Jack and Mundy uncover a horrifying scene: the bodies of Hume's family, brutally murdered. Mundy screams as she finds the corpses of Hume's children. Back at the station, Rachel hears Jack's frantic report over the radio. Dr. Hume, standing behind Rachel, taunts her, asking if she wants to fight him. Without hesitation, Rachel strikes him with her baton. Six shows her a vision of Hume's family's mutilated bodies, distracting her momentarily. Dr. Hume tries to escape, but Rachel recovers just in time and locks him up. As Rachel stands in the cell block, Six asks her if she's enjoying her work. Caesar chimes in, saying that according to Six, everyone in the station is there because of their sins. Enraged, Rachel tells Six to go to hell. Six calmly replies, "It's meaningless. All the demons are already here." Rachel stood frozen as Six's words echoed in her mind. He had revealed something about her past, something so personal and painful that it left her trembling. Before she could process it, Six began blowing a whistle in the same haunting tone her abuser had used during her childhood. The sound sent chills down her spine, dragging her back to the horrors she had endured. She remembered the psychopath who had kidnapped, abused, and raped her, and how she had barely escaped that living hell. The nightmare she had woken from earlier now felt all too real. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought to keep her composure. She quickly called McCready, her voice shaking as she updated him on everything that had happened in his absence. McCready assured her he'd be there soon, his tone calm but urgent. As he hung up, he pulled out a wooden box from under his bed, revealing a shotgun. Meanwhile, Six turned his attention to Caesar, who was still locked in his cell. "You still have a chance," Six said calmly. "Not everyone gets a second opportunity to make things right." He urged Caesar to confess his sins, but Caesar stubbornly denied any wrongdoing. Six's eyes darkened, and he showed Caesar a vision of his crime: driving drunk, hitting a young girl, and leaving her to die on a deserted road. The blood on Caesar's car, which Rachel had noticed earlier, belonged to that girl. Six revealed that the girl was still alive, but time was running out. "If you lose this chance," Six warned, "what comes next will be far worse than any punishment the law could give you." Caesar hesitated, torn between fear and guilt. Meanwhile, Mundy and Jack returned to the station. Mundy dragged Dr. Hume out of his cell and began interrogating him about the unspeakable acts he had committed against his own family. Dr. Hume, his voice eerily calm, explained that he had been searching for the human soul. He believed that by dissecting his family, he could locate the soul, trap it, and achieve immortality. His cold, detached confession horrified Mundy and Jack. Six then showed Jack visions of his own sins, how he and Mundy had killed an innocent man and framed it as a suicide. Jack, overwhelmed with rage, stormed into the interrogation room and began beating Dr. Hume. In his fury, he didn't realize he had killed the doctor until it was too late. Jack and Mundy turned to Rachel, threatening her to keep quiet about what she had seen. But before Rachel could respond, an alarm blared from the basement. Rachel rushed downstairs to find Caesar in a state of panic. He confessed to running over the young girl and admitted that the blood on his car was hers. He begged for a chance to make things right, but Six intervened, revealing that the girl had died minutes ago. "It's too late," Six said coldly. "You've crossed the line." Rachel turned to Six, demanding to know how he knew about the girl's death. Caesar answered for him. "Six knows everything." Rachel pressed further, asking Six who he truly was. Six simply replied, "You already know." Suddenly, Rachel had a flashback to her childhood. She remembered being trapped in her abuser's house, terrified and helpless. It was Six who had distracted her abuser, giving her the chance to escape. He had been there all along. Six then warned Rachel that Jack and Mundy were planning to kill her. At first, she dismissed his words, but as she left the basement, she overheard Jack and Mundy scheming upstairs. They were discussing how to silence her permanently. Rachel's heart raced as she realized Six had been telling the truth. Just then, her phone rang. It was McCready. She answered, but before she could speak, Jack and Mundy noticed her presence. Rachel tried to cover by making up a story about Caesar setting off the alarm, but McCready's voice crackled through the phone, exposing her. Mundy sneered. "You shouldn't have involved that old fool, McCready." Before Rachel could react, Jack lunged at her, putting her in a chokehold. She struggled, gasping for air as Mundy closed in. Just as Rachel thought it was over, the station doors burst open. McCready stood there, half naked, his body wrapped in barbed wire and covered in blood, a cross hanging from his neck. He looked like a deranged version of Jesus, clutching a shotgun. His eyes were wild, his psycho persona fully unleashed. Jack froze at the sight of him, releasing Rachel as he backed away in fear. McCready, acting like a madman, first shoots Jack in the neck and then in his groin, leaving him in agony. Rachel and Mundy, terrified, hide behind separate tables as McCready starts shouting Bible verses, claiming he's here to punish the sinners. His voice echoes through the room, filled with rage and madness. Rachel, desperate and brave, sneaks up behind him and slashes his knee with a box cutter. This gives her and Mundy a brief chance to run, but McCready, despite his injury, manages to hurt both of them before they can lock themselves in the basement. Rachel, bleeding and scared, begs Six to help them. Six, a mysterious figure, tells her he can't do much because Rachel doesn't want to punish the sinners. She wants to forgive them. Rachel, frustrated, asks if Six wants everyone dead. Six calmly explains that an old friend once told him sinners have existed as long as the earth itself and there's nothing he can do but watch them sin. But Six didn't agree with that idea, which is why he was cast out. He tells Rachel she's like him, a cast-out, and together they could do great things. Rachel doesn't fully understand but doesn't have time to argue. Suddenly, the lights go out. Rachel peeks through a window and sees McCready pouring gasoline around the police station. He's chanting Bible verses like a lunatic, determined to burn the place down. Within moments, flames engulf the building, spreading quickly to the basement. Rachel tries to save everyone, but Six tells her their fate is sealed. He offers her a choice: die with the others or join him in punishing the sinners. Rachel refuses, determined to fight for survival. Mundy, Caesar, and Rachel work together to control the fire, but McCready is waiting outside the basement, shotgun in hand. As Caesar steps out, McCready fires but misses. He tries to shoot Mundy but misses again. Caesar throws a chair through a window to create an escape route, but McCready stops him. Mundy attempts to jump through the broken window, but her foot slips and her throat is cut by the jagged glass. MacReady presses her head down, killing her mercilessly. He then shoots Rachel in the back, but the bullet only grazes her shoulder. Caesar isn't as lucky. MacReady shoots him dead. Rachel, wounded but determined, comes up with a plan. As MacReady charges at her, she throws a gas can at him. He shoots it, causing a massive explosion that leaves him severely injured, crawling on the floor. Rachel, fueled by adrenaline, grabs a heavy object and smashes it into his face, ending his life. Exhausted and covered in blood, Rachel escapes the burning building. Six follows her, crossing off the names of those who died in the station and sending their souls to hell. He reaches out to Rachel, asking her to join him. Rachel hesitates, saying she never asked for his help. Six reminds her that she begged him to save her from her abuser in the past. He admits he's seen as a sinner but claims he only observes and reports to the angels, making them weep. He offers Rachel the chance to torment every sinner, repeating his plea for her to join him. Finally, Rachel agrees. Six steps forward and kisses her, sealing their dark partnership. And to enter a short partnership with an interesting movie recap, click on the recommendations on the right. Drop a like and subscribe to return for future uploads. Grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.